Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So my name is Sam, and I'm with the events team here at ForthRev. And in this dedicated segment, we aim to provide participants with a deep understanding of what hiring managers are seeking in UX candidates. So before we dive in, this session will be recorded. And if you have any questions during the session, please post them to the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. And then just to kick things off, we will ask our speakers just to introduce themselves. Judith, can we start with you?
Of course. Hi, my name is Judith Mora. I'm one of the facilitators here for a couple of the cohorts. I also have my own health tech startup, and I've been working in UX for about 9 years now, built and hired for large teams, and yeah, building my own team at the moment as well. Hi.
Great, thank you. Right, let's start with the ladies. Adele?
Hi, I'm Adele. I'm one of the career coaches at ForthRev. Prior to moving into coaching, which gosh, has been now about 6-7 years ago, I was actually working in recruitment a lot for the digital design industry, so quite related, and have moved more into coaching and helping people really transition, grow and develop their careers.
Thanks, Adele. And then Rory?
Hello, I'm Rory. I also work in design recruitment. I focus on the Berlin market, and I've been through 3 career changes myself as an adult, so I understand the headspace that accompanies these kind of things very well.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry about my dogs going crazy now, but Justin, I'll hand over to you for the questions.
Right, sure. I'm Justin. I am the product manager and UX subject lead here at ForthRev. So I helped build the course that we're offering here at ForthRev, and I also facilitated the very first cohort of learners. I've been working in product design and research for about a decade, similar to Judith. Let's get started with questions. This first question is going to be geared towards you, Roy and Judith. Could you identify some of the key attributes or skills that you think hiring managers are looking for when they're hiring for either a UX designer or maybe even a product designer in 2024?
I would say one huge trend that we are noticing at the moment is like a really big focus on nice, clean visual design skills. This is something that it has always been in demand. Whenever I speak to a head of design, I always say, where's the gap in your team for skills? What do you need in a designer? And it was always saying, we need someone who's got like a good understanding of visual design skills, and also like a want to do it as well. Because I found that when there was like the big UX boom, when I started doing this job, a lot of people used to say, I'm not a pixel pusher, I'm all about user-centered design, which is cool and whatnot. But as the industry's changed and shifted and continues to do, we have more jobs which are just product designer, which means you would do like UX and UI. And even if you were to be focused on the UX side as well, it's still important to have the understanding of visual design, because obviously they go hand in hand, but also, to have some sort of like capability with it, but also to be able to present that in your portfolio. So, as a recruiter, that as much as I hate biases, you're always going to have a sort of favor the portfolio that looks pretty. Well, that's just the sort of state of things, really. So yeah, I'd say the key one for me these days is visual design.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And before I move on to you, Judith, that was a big part of when we were building this course. In part 3 of our course, we focus a lot on visual design and UI because it is becoming so much more important. And design's not as tedious as it used to be. Back like 10 years ago, you'd be like focusing so much on, is that 8 pixels over? And it's just changed so much that you're expected now to be able to do good design. And we want our learners to both do that and have more doors open to them for both UX and UI roles. I don't know, Judith, if you have anything else you wanted to add on that.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with this. And I think this is just the kind of the sign of the times. there's a lot of talk in the industry of how there's a lot less investment for design teams within large companies, startups, scale-ups. And that kind of leads to, you know, as UXers, we all need to know a lot more about visual design. But like you said, it's also to do with the tools that we use, that it's, you know, it's just become a lot more accessible and a lot easier for everyone to kind of move into that space as well. So I think that's one. But what I also wanted to add is I've seen a lot of product design roles where, you know, product designer a few years ago used to be you need to know UI and UX really well. However, I've seen a few product design roles more recently where product designer were understood to be like, you really need to understand a bit about product ownership and a lot of like the commercial side as well. And I think that's another emerging trend that I've come across more recently.
Yeah, great. No, thanks for sharing. Adele, this question is geared towards you. What are some of the common challenges that you feel are experienced by entry-level UX designers that are looking to transition their career into UX? Yeah.
I think, you know, the challenge for anyone looking to transition, it's that, you know, chicken and egg experience situation. You know, can't get the job because you haven't got experience, can't get experience because you haven't got the job. What we do as coaches is obviously kind of work with them to really pull out where are the transferable skills, what are the skills and strengths, because ultimately those strengths you're going to carry with you wherever you go, and how does that play into the kind of role that you want to you know, you want to move forward to. And I think, you know, just touching on portfolios, it's actually really building out a folio of all the stuff that you're doing throughout the Career Accelerator. So you're bringing those skills and strengths to life in the role of UX, which can really help them transition. And then a lot of it is about, you know, building your powerful personal brand to put out to market as well, not just trying to kind of stick with a stock standard CV and hope it's going to work for you. So I think there's a lot more, you know, you kind of need to take a really rounded view of how to do that, you know, that kind of transition.
Okay. And what about people that might be looking more into advancing their careers? So they maybe been doing UX design for 1 or 2 years and really want to push forward? Yeah,
I mean, again, I think, you know, we in the coaching team, we have a bit of a saying that, you know, LinkedIn is for life, not just for your job search. So it really is about continuing to build that personal brand and take it with you. Build your portfolio, not just when you're looking for a job, but really continuing to see how you're evolving. We are evolving beings, and so your personal brand needs to follow that kind of growth that you're going through. Not wait till you're at the point that you want to, you know, you want to up level, you want to go for that promotion, but always be thinking about, you know, where do I want to be in the next 6 to 12 months? How do I position myself? What are the steps I need to take to get there? And whether that's skills development, networking, contacts, additional pieces of work you want to work on, perhaps outside of your you know, your full-time employment. So I think it's really having your finger on the pulse of where are you going and growing in your career. Yeah,
that's great advice. I think what's also really unique about the design space is the different types of roles that are available to you out there. So you can change your career in sorts while staying within the same industry. Myself, I've been a UX designer, I've been a UX researcher, I've been a product designer, I've been a service designer, and so I'm just continuing working in the design space. But I don't know if you would call it advancing, but you're taking on different interests. I think now a lot of people, you know, they get bored after doing something for a few years and they want to do something else, but still leverage their skills. And I think this industry is a really great industry to do that, unlike some others where maybe you can just progress to like management roles, or you have to do something a bit more divergent. So I think it is a very unique space for
I think they're kind of multifaceted roles, aren't they, within a niche. There's like, you know, niches within the niche. And I think that's where you're kind of career planning and looking at where you want to go to. It's kind of identifying those roles, like looking at your skills and strengths. What are you enjoying doing? What do you want to do more of? Where does that sit in the market, in the industry? So you're being quite strategic about kind of the moves and the planning. It's not just this linear kind of, you know, moving one step up, you know, up the ladder in a sense. And I think, you know, when you're doing that, you're seeing what's developing in the industry. And if we look back 5 and 10 years, some of the roles that are out there now didn't exist then. So I think when you can have your finger on the pulse, you can really see what's happening, what might be shaping, and you get to really craft your kind of career future as well. Don't get me started, because you know I'm a talker on this topic.
No worries. No, we really appreciate all your insights. I'm going to direct this next question to you, Rory, but love to hear your thoughts as well, Judith. Rory, how do you think individuals from non-traditional backgrounds, so maybe someone from marketing, or maybe they even worked in psychology, how do you think they could position themselves for a career in UX design effectively?
I was speaking about this to a colleague of mine recently as well. So one really obvious thing which a lot of people kind of overlook is like looking at doing design in that experience that you're in, that industry that you already have experience in. So, you know, if you've got experience in marketing, hospitality, music, whatever, just like do a search for products in that space, because there's a certain amount of like onboarding, let's say, that you do as a designer, sort of understanding the audience you're designing for, and like, you know, the sort of the functions of these products and that industry space itself. Whereas if you've spent years working in that space, that could help to put you at a huge advantage against other people. And it also means that your onboarding into that company and product space is a lot more smoother, because you already get the problem that they're solving. And personally, I feel like you're able to bring a lot more to the table as a result.
Yeah, really great advice.
Yeah. What I was going to add is, like, I completely agree, because I've recently spoken to one of the students here, and I actually just told her to kind of utilize her existing role to perhaps suggest kind of like using some of her UX skills within the current role she's doing, and perhaps consider transitioning there as well. And I think that kind of made me think of really kind of using your existing connections within the existing industry is much, much easier than saying, oh, I'm doing something completely different. And it will most probably, if you just break into a new role, you will most probably end up in a slightly different industry as well. So I think it's using your connections. But I've actually had the chance to kind of hire someone in a previous role who didn't have any UX experience. However, she used to work in customer journeys for a really large consultancy. And kind of when I had a conversation with her, I kind of asked her, like, what are the kind of tasks that you think you've been using in your current role versus, you know, what you studied when you kind of studied UX. And I think she just kind of came up with a whole host of ideas. And I clearly could see that, wow, you can actually, you know, you take basically your learnings from that role into this one. And I think it's just perhaps considering what are the things you've done in the past that are kind of perhaps not being called the same thing as we do call them in UX, but, you know, they are kind of similar, very similar types of activities.
Great. And for those people who maybe they feel like they're ready to position themselves, Rory, where do you think they should start actually applying for those new roles? Like, are there specific job sites that you would recommend they go to, or people they speak with, or do you have specific interview tips for them?
I'm not sure if there's specific jobs for like these industries, because I guess it would all fall under like the tech arm of that industry. So, you know, if you worked in hospitality, you could go on like a hospitality job website, but the tech stuff probably wouldn't fall there. I think if we were going to use this industry specific experience to play to our advantage, my tip would be to just get in touch with people in that company directly. So just, you know, writing to them on LinkedIn, trying to guess their work email. It's usually first name dot second name at the company, and just being rather persistent with it and not being afraid to like follow things up and just say like, look, I know this space really well from XYZ. I want to position myself as a designer in the space now, and just really getting used to like having that confidence to sell your experience. Because I think if like a product manager or a head of design, hiring manager, whoever is someone who can you know, really see the benefit of that experience and how that can bring a lot to the product, then it will help you greatly to just get directly in touch with people in that space.
Okay, great. No, thanks for that tip. I've got a question for the whole panel. How would you advise individuals that might have limited technical or design background, but they've actually got really strong soft skills? How could they enhance their candidacy for UX design roles?
I think just picking up on kind of what's been said, and it really links to this, it's actually looking at what you've got and how that relates and plays into the role of UX. So Judith, you said it really nicely when you were interviewing that person. You know, when they looked at their past experience kind of with the lens of the role that they want, the UX lens, it's then kind of, it's like there's this, I see it as this golden thread of actually, well, that links, that relates. And then it's bringing that to life within your, you know, within your portfolio, within your LinkedIn and your CV. And, you know, that forms kind of part of your pitch. Because those, you know, the technical skills you can learn and develop, whereas your strengths are innately you. You know, some people are great communicators, some people are great at problem solving, some people can see how, you know, dots connect, others can't, you know, and that's a much harder skill to train in because it's more kind of, you know, an innate strength. So I think it's really looking at that and seeing how that, you know, that plays into the roles that you want.
I'd absolutely agree with that. I think sometimes it can all feel a bit like overwhelming and daunting, but it's about getting your head into like what the day in, day out stuff that a UX designer does and thinking about how you've done that in past careers. Like I was talking to someone recently about hospitality. A lot of it is like complex stakeholder management because you are just working, you know, sort of between the customer and like the chefs and like the manager and stuff. So you know, you're having to think about all these different sort of parties within it and you know, negotiate and sort of communicate things in what we all know is quite an intense environment. So there's definitely stuff within each career which will be applicable to UX because it is quite a broad term. It's hard to find those connections sometimes at the start, but just keep digging and digging and digging and like reading more and more job specs and trying to sort of think about situations in your career where you've tackled them, and all of a sudden you'll identify one, then another one will pop up, and another one will pop up, and that will help you with like, you know, your confidence and ability to sell yourself, and also things like writing a cover letter for your CV and really making that stand out.
I think
sorry.
I think from experience, I think it's really important for any kind of, you know, UXer who's starting or anyone who's, you know, fairly junior to kind of, like you said, Rory, just kind of like reflect on what the day-to-day kind of means. And the day-to-day reality of being in UX is that it's a lot of stakeholder management, collaboration, trying to deal with others, trying to listen to people who have come from, you know, they look at things with a very different perspective. And it is, yeah, it's actually, I think, you know, the more you kind of get more senior, that kind of stakeholder management element can become a much bigger part as well. So I actually think that, you know, I think just because you don't have the technical skills, you could be a very, very strong candidate if you have those kind of soft skills and people skills.
Definitely. And I think like a lot of the people you deal with, or from speaking with designers, it seems like a lot of the people you deal with in like product and engineering, very like business minded or very technology minded, and you're employed to be the voice of the user. So having that like sort of outside experience that is non-linear is really, really beneficial because you certainly, you already, as you said, you're already experienced in like having that those conversations with people and helping them to understand things from a user perspective.
Yeah, no, great input, everyone. I completely agree 100% with what everyone's saying. I would probably add, just from hiring teams in the past, that I'm always looking for someone that is showing some capability or growth in terms of their technical skills. So if it's a junior designer, I've hired people that have done boot camps, and maybe they worked on a startup idea that they had, and they've shown that they can do wireframes. And they've also demonstrated the design, that they can speak the design language. So maybe they don't have tons of experience, but they know what they're talking about at a basic level, and it's clear that they have technical capabilities. So I think definitely leverage your soft skills and your previous experience. But I think a lot of people will be looking for demonstration of your technical skills, and they may be limited, but at least you're showing some work and that you can speak the design language. And I think doing a course can absolutely, there's many ways to do it. You can do internships, you can be like a product manager somewhere and start working a bit more in the UX design space at your company, or you could of course, take a course and do project-based work and build a portfolio. So there's many ways to demonstrate it. But I think at Fourth Rev will definitely help you get comfortable with the hard skill, which is really important as well. Next question is geared towards you, Adele. We'd love to hear any success stories of individuals that have transitioned from more diverse backgrounds into UX design. Do you have any that you can share?
I've been doing some looking at who's finished, who's got the roles. There's been a mix, and I think you know, some of them have transitioned and got roles. Some have developed in their role, like you said, they may be in product and they're moving more into UX. Have developed the confidence. We've had some people that, from up leveling their personal brand, their LinkedIn, bringing their portfolio kind of to life on LinkedIn, have been approached and got roles. We've had people from psychology backgrounds, kind of sales, business development, because again, there's a lot of that people skills, and some people have actually been in kind of software development as well. But I think in some of those sales, business development roles, it's you know, seeing the problems that their customers are facing, bringing it internally. So have been a real kind of go-between. So there's been a number of different transitions and, you know, different kind of career developments along the way with you know, with the skills that they've developed. You know, I think ultimately once you know, with the Career Accelerator, you're gaining those hard skills. The coaching is obviously also helping you see how do you package that up and bring it to life to take it to market if a new role is, you know, your ultimate end goal.
Okay, great. Roy, this next question is for you. What are the biggest pitfalls or mistakes that candidates should avoid during their job application and interview process when looking at UX design positions?
I'd say number one is not getting your CV and portfolio all fully in order, up to date, and then like testing it with people first, because just some insight from like the side of a recruiter and someone who speaks with a lot of internal TAs, we get like so many applications for jobs, and you know, a lot of the time Sally just goes yes funnel, no funnel, and it's like once you've applied once, you'll go into that no funnel, and then if you're applying again, it would just, a lot of the time they'll just say no, sorry, you've already applied, because a lot of people will sadly be trying to apply for things 2 or 3 times depending on their situation. And then from getting feedback from heads of design, like they, you know, I'm not a designer myself, but I spend all day looking at portfolios and stuff. I thought I was fairly meticulous, but no, heads of design are like super meticulous with it. So like spelling mistakes, you know, like if there's a lack of consistency with like the layout of something. I've had all sorts of reasons why heads of design have like rejected candidates, but ultimately, you know, they always say, look, design's about attention to detail. This person's looking to present themselves as well. So it's having that attention to detail and making sure that it's all on point and has been checked thoroughly. The good thing about design is that everyone's friendly and helpful. So there's loads of people out there that would probably be happy to review your portfolio. I'm sure you could get, you know, people on the course to help you with this. Also, there's a whole heap of like resources and examples and stuff out there. I've got a big Notion board full of things I'll share with you afterwards, which has got lots of stuff on. So yeah, it's just sort of, I'm an ADHD person, so I was like panicked and overthinking and in a rush, but it's just remembering to take a big deep breath, step back, and like take your time to go everything through everything a few times, then sending it to someone else for some feedback, which is also good practice because designers are kind of savage in their critique, I've learned to understand, but I've also learned from having friends that are designers, like, look, that's just part of the job. So I guess it's also a good way of getting used to that and kind of feedback as well.
Yeah, that's a really great piece of advice. People often forget to have other people review their job applications, and absolutely taking feedback regularly and not personally is like literally one of the main bits that you can't survive if you can't deal with people giving feedback on your work, whether it's users or people on your team. So really good tip to get started on that career path. Adele, this question is geared towards you. How important is networking in the UX design industry to advance your career, and what strategies do you recommend to build a strong network within this field?
I think networking is important in any industry. So yeah, there's the saying, your net worth is your network. And I never understood that until I was in recruitment. Then I was like, okay, yeah, I get this. So yeah, I think it's really important to network, but not be networking just to get a job. Be networking to build long-term relationships that you might be in a position where you're then recruiting and you're pulling on your network. It's to share information, it's to gain knowledge, hear about what's going on. There's so much more to it. I think the people that go out just networking to get a job don't, give or get a good networking experience. So really just, finding out, the movers and the shakers in the industry, seeing what's happening, who's doing what. And I reach out to them. LinkedIn, Rory just said it, and we were talking actually before we went live about this. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable messaging strangers. And that's what LinkedIn's about, really. It's a networking site. And, Rory's just said it again, people are really happy to help. And when actually you go and ask for some help, you can be really surprised when people have got a bit of time, what they'll come back, and give you. I've had, learners and people in my private practice literally get introduced to 20 plus people in the industry by somebody that was like, I've been where you are and I want to help you. So yeah, and also getting active, sharing stuff. If you're somebody who likes to, showcase your work out there, look at, writing stuff on LinkedIn or Medium. There's some other kind of design platforms as well. So yeah, just such an important tool for future-proofing your career.
Great. And someone has just actually posted a question related to this. They're quite shy. They're wanting to know what they could do to get started networking. Do you have advice in that department, Del?
So I think the face-to-face networking is something to build up to. The LinkedIn networking, it really is just sending, initially sending a connection email. And I think it's understanding it is going to feel a bit weird the first time you do it because it's the first time you've done it. But the more that you kind of do that, it gets, obviously gets easier. That's what LinkedIn's there for. And people expect to be linking in with you, and so sometimes it's just thinking, okay, this is going to feel a little bit weird, a little bit strange, but I'm just going to type a little I want to connect with you note and hit send. If they're working with a career coach, sometimes we really sit and do the connection notes together to get over that awkward first feeling.
Got you.
I'd say also, like, I deal with crippling anxiety in many a social situation, especially with like design meetups as well, because it's always weird being the person in the room that's like not technically a designer. But like to get over this one, I knew I had to start going to meetups to do like business development and stuff. I used to just attend online meetups as much as possible. I just sit in the background, just with my headphones on, and just treat it like a podcast and just do like admin tasks I'm listening, just to get a sort of feel for the topics that are discussed, and also learning about the kind of questions people ask at the end. And then once I was like sort of kind of as comfortable as I could be in that space, I started going to in-person ones. And also, again, like design's a nice crowd. Like I go to like Berlin product design meetup whenever I can, and like everyone there is so welcoming, because the whole thing is like, same with sending messages to strangers on LinkedIn, like everyone's been there, everyone's had to send that awkward first message, everyone's come to a meetup not knowing anyone there as well. And generally, in my experience, people can easily identify who's at a meetup having not been to one before, and will come over and make you feel really welcome as well. So like again, I'm a big overthinker, and it was all very, very scary from the outside. But once you put your foot inside that door, design's a really welcoming place.
Got you. Judy, I know you had your hand raised. So I think in general, it would be great to hear from you and Rory. You've been in the industry for about a decade. It'd be great to hear your experience and advice on networking within this industry.
So, So yeah, one thing I wanted to add to what Adele said is that really kind of with the industry, I always felt that you kind of get what you put in. And I think especially within design and UX, everyone's fairly empathic, and it's not always easy because it's, you know, there's just a lot of us doing and trying to go for similar jobs, obviously. But I think that because of the kind of, we have to kind of immerse ourselves in empathy, I think people are really understanding if you reach out. And I really like what you said, that like, don't just network for a job, just talk to people, just say like, I'm working on this, like I've seen that you might be working on a similar project, you know, try, you know, can I see what you're doing, or can we have a chat, and things like that. And yeah, I think everything that you said, Rory, I think everyone's pretty much in the same position. And I have to say, I'm quite anxious with networking as well, even though, you know, we've been doing it for a long time, but it always kind of, when you go to a crowd and you don't know people, you just go, oh my God, what am I doing here? Who are these people? Do they want to talk to me? And just remember that everyone's pretty much in the same boat. And yeah, we're usually quite empathic, so it's all good.
Nice. Adele, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I think the term networking can just really put people off, and it's just communication, it's just talking. So I think some of it, you know, if you're feeling nervous about networking, just take the networking out of it and just think, I'm just going to go and talk to somebody. Because this networking, I don't know, it feels like, oh, I've got to put a business suit on and be all corporate and professional, rather than I'm just going to go and say hi to someone on LinkedIn. And the mind then conjures up all these stories that aren't, and you know, Rory, you were saying this, aren't really real, and then make it this big overwhelming thing, when really it's as simple as going, hi, you've got a great profile, I, you know, love the company you work for, be great to connect. So just make it, you know, kind of simplify it. It's not it doesn't need, we don't need to overthink it, which I think when we use the term networking, we tend to overthink it.
Yeah.
I'd add to that with like, obviously networking is very like sort of businessy term, and like my first like 2 years probably of doing this job were just a nightmare, because I used to write really long, really formal like business development messages, and like the reality is like no one talks like that in the tech world, and B, like no one's got time for that. Like I connected with a really good designer yesterday because they said in their profile, I like design, I like potatoes, and I was like, yo, I work in design, I like potatoes too, let's connect. And it's like, bang, it's as easy as that. The biggest client I picked up when I first started doing this job was just a simple message when I just said, look, you need to hire a UI designer, I recruit UI designers, we should chat. So, and I still get it from candidates now. I get like, and I get where it's coming from, because I did it for like 2 years, banging my head against the wall. Like, why is no one answering my messages? But like sending these really long things like, I'm interested in the candidature for your company. It's just good to just keep it really short and simple, because sadly, you know, everyone's like super busy with like work these days because of all the demands and whatnot. So just short, like punchy messages are always good, and just have your personality and a bit of yourself in there as well, because like tone of voice is really important, and it goes a long way, and it's something you'll develop over time when you'll like start doing LinkedIn posts, and if you want to create content as well. But like it's important to like have a bit of your own character in what you're doing, and it also takes the mundanity out of it and makes it a lot more interesting too.
Yeah, good tips. I think for me, I might even say the word friended you instead of connected you on LinkedIn, because I kind of just I don't really speak to people on LinkedIn that I don't want to speak to in real life, quote unquote. It's just like and I think it's common in the tech industry and the design industry that people are close, like friends with their colleagues, and they enjoy spending time with their colleagues. Not that other people don't. So typically I'm, you know, having a normal, friendly conversation with someone on LinkedIn, and it makes it a lot less daunting, and it's not fun to just be businessy all the time. So I tend to not be businessy most of the time. And I think the advice that you've given, Roy, about keeping it short and concise is really important. And one advice that we have had in another panel for one of our other courses is, and Roy, I'm sure you can attest to this, is don't take things personally when recruiters like don't respond to you right away or at all, or it's very short, because it's usually one person and there's a lot of requests, and there's only so much time in the day. So sometimes it's a matter of staying in touch, keep reaching out, or I mean, Rory might have better advice for this, but I think like don't take responses to your request or your messages personally, and except that it's a crowded industry. And I don't know if you have anything extra to add there, Roy, but
absolutely, I'd agree with that. I mean, I still struggle with it to this day, but then I have to like just go outside for like a walk or whatever and just remind myself like, it's just work at the end of the day, which is important. I'm a bit of a workaholic myself, but a lot of my friends recently have just called me out on it and said like, look, you need to remember what's truly important in life. And B, like, yeah, especially with like written messages, sometimes the tone of voice can be completely misconstrued. And like, I'll write, like, at the moment, I'll probably write about 50 to 60 business development messages a week. I'll probably get 1 or 2 responses a month from that. What is important, I'd always say, is trying to be methodical with it when you are doing the networking. So if someone connects with you and is like polite and it's like, oh, sorry, just not, yes, but like not now, or like, oh, good to connect and whatnot, but like, sorry, this isn't something we can help with. Just take a note of who those people are. So save them in a spreadsheet, or even like learn to use HubSpot, which is a free sales tool, which is quite good for like building lists of people who are responsive, and just have some kind of routine of checking in with them. Because the more you sort of have these little kind of like micro interactions with people, the more familiar you become, and the easier that interaction becomes for you to make, and the more memorable you are to them as well.
Great, thanks for that. I think it might be a good idea to dive into some of the Q&A. So I'm going to jump into that, questions that people are asking live. I've got a question for you, Adele. As a career coach, what advice do you have for candidates struggling with imposter syndrome or self-doubt as they navigate the job search? And of course, anyone from the panel can answer this question, but they've asked for a career coach perspective.
So, I think a lot of us at some point in time in our career go through imposter syndrome. I still, wake up some mornings and think, am I any good at what I do? And have those moments of doubt. I think it's kind of, an exercise that I do for myself and I do with, the people that I'm working with, is looking at where your skills and strengths are, and actually having a list of achievements or a list of things that you're good at to refer to. If you are transitioning and you maybe haven't got the commercial experience of the hard skills, there's still going to be those strengths that we spoke about. Good communicator, I've had experience doing this where I really honed my skills and strengths in X and Y. So actually having them written down and kind of using them as a bit of an affirmation on those moments that you have a wobble. It happens. So I think it's a practice of and having some strategies to go to overcome those moments. Imposter syndrome, it's, if we can build the confidence muscle, that helps overcome the kind of imposter syndrome. And those simple exercises can really help with that.
Yeah.
But also know that it's normal.
Well,
Yeah.
One thing I sometimes do, and because I also suffer with imposter syndrome, various degrees, but I've heard this from someone that if you've ever had praise from someone, take a screenshot of it and save them into a folder and just read them on a day when you're having a tough time or when you feel like you don't believe in yourself, and just remember like these are the things other people have said about you, and it's quite a good tool actually.
This just want to add to it. It just came into my head now whilst we're on the subject, and it was it's more for like an interview tip technique, and it's someone I used to work with who was like an amazing software engineer recruiter. And one tip they always gave engineers before an interview, so when we used to interview like in offices, he's like, go and stand in the bathroom with your hands raised for like a while. It's like some sort of champion stance. And I heard him say it to a candidate, and I was like, what is the theory behind this? I'd love to know more. And he says when blind athletes win like a race, if they're running, they'll do that, and it's like it's natural to like put your hands in the air when you're winning. Apparently it's some kind of like confidence stance, which is really empowering. I love all this kind of hippie stuff. It just popped into my head then.
Power pose,
that's the one.
Yeah. I also think that sometimes you can mistake imposter syndrome for downplaying your own capabilities. So I think if you can separate the two, especially, so I'm both British and American, and I have a lot of Britishness in terms of like not thinking that like what I do is that impressive and boasting about it in interviews. And I think that's very common with a lot of people, but especially in British culture. I know we target a lot of that audience. So it's it's recognize whether you're maybe downplaying your capabilities too much. You know, I even did that before this call, like what extra value am I going to add? Asking questions, you know, not even recognizing that. And then there is the imposter syndrome side, where I think if you do feel like maybe you are lacking in capability, then recognize that, do skill mapping radar or some kind of exercise, and get yourself better in that skill where you think you are lacking. But I think differentiating between the two can be helpful to identify where you really want to improve and where you're already, you know, quite amazing actually already. Yes, Adele.
Yeah, and I think that was a really good kind of point to add. And to kind of follow on from that, it's not thinking you have to be great at everything. And it's just honing in on what you are great at and making that better, and kind of knowing there's things that I'm not great at that, and I'm okay, I'm not going to be great at that, because there's other people that's their superpowers, as I like to call it. And this is my superpowers, and kind of, you know, owning it. Because I think when we start judging ourselves against someone else and their greatness, that's when we can kind of feel like we're never good enough. So it's really just kind of thinking, you know, where do my strengths lie, and where do I kind of build my career using my strengths?
Great. Thanks. Let's tackle a few of the other Q&As for the audience. So I'm going to pose this question to both Rory and Judith, but of course anyone can answer. What are some of the lesser known challenges that entry-level UX designers often face when starting their career? Actually, Judith, it's probably best geared towards you, but anyone can pitch in.
I actually, this is a really interesting question, because I think a lot of designers, or UXers, when they start a role, they kind of think it's all going to be exactly as you've learned it, and it's going to be a linear process, and it never is a linear process. And I think that throws a lot of people off. And what throws people even more so is that if you have seniors, or perhaps you're in a team where you don't have seniors and you're working with engineers or product managers who are not really there's not a UX maturity in the organization, they will really also try to push you to do things that are not actually in their best interest. And I think that's a really difficult thing for junior designers, because you feel like, well, I've just started this job, maybe I don't know everything, but really, if you're prepared, you know, having done a course here, then you will be prepared. You know what should be the best practice. So it's kind of like a weird balancing situation where you kind of know a lot, but then, you know, in reality comes in and it's going to completely mess everything up. But just kind of try to stick to the kind of what you know best, of like, well, there's a reason we do research, there's a reason why we analyze our findings, there's a reason we don't just jump to let's do UI without anything else. And I think that's the biggest challenge in the job that I've seen.
Okay, great. Let's do another question. How can maybe this is a good one for you, Adele. How can candidates effectively communicate their soft skills, such as communication, problem solving, and collaboration, during the job application and interview process for UX design roles? And is that even important?
So yeah, I think it is important, and I think it's bringing it to life in kind of explaining a situation rather than listing. Great communicator, communicated by, you know, various channels. It's kind of saying, you know, say if we go to the restaurant scenario, you know, managing or working in a busy restaurant where it was taking orders, understanding dietary requirements, dealing with the kitchen, managing timeline expectations, you're therefore showing, not telling, that you're a great communicator. I think where it falls flat is where people list those kind of human skills, as we call them, just in a list. You know, great time management, great communicator, and it's not, you know, it's not giving any context. So I think if you can bring it to life, that's really important, and it just gives it much more kind of punch than, you know, and they can see it and feel it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and yes, go ahead, Roy.
I'd say to add to that, that really chimed with me with what you're saying, because this is the kind of stuff I practiced when I was wanting to get into recruitment, because I never had like an office job or a normal job before. So it was like, thinking about how those skills transfer into the industry I want to go into, but then like practicing talking about them using like storytelling, so like situational kind of things, like, okay, so there was this one time in the kitchen where XYZ happened, I had to do. So just practicing that dialogue again and again and again, to like, even to like friends, or just saying it to myself in the shower and stuff, it really helped. And again, this is a skill which you should build on at the start, because it's something that you'll use more and more throughout your career as UX designer, is like using case studies to explain things and why decisions are made, and also storytelling as well to sort of like help back up your ideas and put your point across.
Great advice, Roy. And we actually have a whole section in the course on storytelling, because we understand how effective it is right from the beginning. I think it's the soft skills are often missed in when thinking about what skills you need for UX design. And like most of okay, of course, if you're the UX designer, you need the hard skill of designing at least wireframes, but a lot of the job is problem solving. It's communication and collaboration. Judith talked about stakeholder management earlier. There's a lot, especially problem solving. I think people, when they're new to UX, they underestimate how much of the role is, you're solving problems that users are facing using interfaces. So it's absolutely crucial. Let's see. We've got one more question live. It kind of touches on, you just mentioned case studies, Roy, but this is open to the panel, is how crucial is it to have a portfolio showcasing your practical skills and competencies? You touched a bit earlier in the call, but it'd be good to hear more from you or anyone else on the importance of the portfolio.
Like massively. I wouldn't look at a CV if it didn't have a portfolio to accompany it. And the reason why I'm like that is because I know that I couldn't send people to hiring managers without a portfolio. They just send them back saying like, what are you doing? So, and look, I'm not saying this trying to be like all doom and gloom or daunting either. The better part of this is the fact that portfolios don't need to be too in-depth and too detailed. Like realistically, hiring managers, I saw a post about this the other day, this is really senior hiring manager, I think they're from Google, just wrote like, this is how I look at portfolios and this is how a lot of people look at them, and it's like 30 to 60 seconds. It's the sort of time that people have when I'm sorting through for the yes no pile. That's it. It's like a really quick, does it look good, is there more than one case study there, bang, that's in the yes pile, and then you go through another set of filtering. So 2 case studies, in my opinion, is enough. A lot of people will have like really in-depth portfolios, which is good, but in the reality of the world of work at the moment, like everyone's super busy and hiring managers and recruiters are really, really stretched for time. So just having something like short, simple and punchy is great, because I know a lot of people will overthink their design portfolios and spend loads of time and like almost overcomplicating it, when the reality is it just needs to have 2 case studies. I'm writing an article on portfolios at the moment, which I'll share. Well, I've actually written it. I just have imposter syndrome because I'm not a designer, so I'm sending it to loads of heads of design, I know, to give me some feedback on it. But yeah, they all agree with what I've been saying, which is like, it doesn't need to have loads in there. It just needs to tick a couple of boxes and be accessible.
Yeah, I think just to add to what you said, Rory, I think the kind of, if I see any portfolios that come to me, if I'm hiring, I am actually more interested in, does it look good? Yes, but also does it have process and does it detail the process? I will not necessarily have the time to read through the full process, but as long as they can see, they show that they have done the process and they know the process, then I'm like, okay, this person kind of, ticks that box of, because I think one thing we haven't touched on, but it's not so much of a thing now, but a few years ago, there were a lot of designers who were just visual designers and, even just graphic designers who then came into saying UI, and then suddenly they call themselves UX UI. And you kind of then say, well, do you kind of know about the actual UX process or not really? And then you can very quickly tell that in the portfolio. As I said, it's not so much as an issue now, but a few years ago, there was a lot of people who kind of, just snuck UX in there and they were not really kind of aware of what that truly meant. So that's why portfolio process is important, I think.
Great, thank you both. That concludes all of our panel questions. So I want to thank you all for your time today and your insights, and would love to give everyone 10 minutes back in their diary. I'd love to give everyone 10 days back. That would be amazing. No, give everyone 10 minutes back in their diary. I believe, and Sam can correct me if I'm wrong, if you've signed up for this webinar, you will get a recording emailed to you, so you will be able to watch it going forward. I think we tend to also post them on our YouTube channel, so that will be available as well. But thanks again for your time. Sam, I don't know if you have anything to add before I close.
No, that's great. Thank you, Justin. The recording will be shared with everyone, and thanks to everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice
See you
day.
soon.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.